Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Jim here. Jim, you're somebody that understands what the athlete has to go through. You've been through that path yourself, and you decided to go and take some of the problems you've encountered and try to solve them and build up organizations to really combat some of these issues and support athletes and have a network around them. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Oh man, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Awesome. So, how did your interest in just the world of athletics and wanting to be somebody that was, involved in all of that, whether it's being an athlete or just helping out other athletes, how did that passion of yours that this is what you want to do with your life begin?
I think it's really an intersection between my passion for playing sports and being around sports with my passion for business and building businesses. And that intersection for me happened when I graduated from college. I had played baseball and basketball my whole life pretty competitively through high school, and then played college baseball as well. And when it was all over, I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do now? And decided to start building a business. And that business, those first 5 years building that company, I realized, wow, like all the things I loved about sports, I love about business, right? I mean,
Mm.
building a team, creating a vision, rallying everyone around it, being excellent in everything you do, and having discipline. I mean, the game theory and competitive strategy against competitors in the market, like it's got a lot of sports in it. And so it was a way for me to work that athlete muscle in life. And I thought, well, the only other thing that'd be better than that is make sure every business I build is in the sports and fitness realm. That way, it's always in the realm of what I love so much from my time playing. And so that's really where it started for me, was when I graduated college and that intersection occurred between business and sports.
When did you realize that, this career of trying to be an athlete needed to shift over to specifically being a business person? Like, how did and how was that experience for you? Because this was a dream, a vision that you had, but then you turned it into a whole nother dream, and that must have been a big transition.
Yeah, I always was very entrepreneurial as a kid, always was very creative. I'm a creative at heart. I'm just not good at drawing or singing or, the typical things that you think of when you think about a creative person. But I'm more creative with, how do you make an idea become real? And the answer to that question is execution. And first, you got to have a good idea. You have to be creative enough to come up with one. You have to be able to see around corners. You have to kind of think about what's next and where the opportunities to solve problems are. And then if that idea hits all those things, you still got to come up with a vision that has a strategy and tactics to execute it. I mean, you and I could come up with the next 10 great ideas for apps on the iPhone, right? We come up with them right now. There's a lot of cool apps we could ideate around. Who's going to go do it? Right. And so that's where I think for me, when I got done playing and I didn't realize my dream of playing pro baseball, I came all the way from New York down to Alabama to play college baseball, and I'm 1,000 miles from home. And my dream to play baseball was so powerful, I left home to go do it, a place I had never been before. And um, when that dream when it became reality that that dream wasn't going to happen, I'm a passionate person. I'm a creative person. I'm going to come up with something new to invest all of myself into with that same passion and dreaming mentality. And so it was just a really natural transition. And other people really that I know can struggle with that, because that transition doesn't happen as fast. And for me, it did. That was something that God really blessed me with, was a really smooth transition from being an athlete to being an entrepreneur.
That's awesome to hear. So one of the first businesses you were involved in was this like video streaming solution that it kind of turned into like this recruiting network. How did that shift, and how did you figure out how to build this like recruiting network?
Yeah, so in college, I learned how to create films, and I became really a jack of all trades with broadcast. So I was the talent on camera, but I also was the person holding the camera, and I was the guy editing everything at night in my dorm room, and I did it all, and it was great because I learned it all by doing it all. And a lot of athletes at my school and other schools knew that I could edit video. And this is 2003, 2004. editing video can only really be done on an Apple computer, which was not popular back then. Nobody had Apples unless you were creative before the iPhone. Um, and you had to have an Apple computer, and you had to have this program called Final Cut Pro, which used to be like Adobe Premiere is today. It was the software you used to edit. And I had it, and I was doing all these projects for school. And a lot of athletes would come to me and ask me to make highlight videos, and I'd do it for them. And you had to burn it onto a DVD. So for you young folks, athletes used to have to mail their DVDs, or even worse, VHS tapes of their highlights to the coach that they were trying to get recruited by, or who was already recruiting them. And when I got out of college, 05, YouTube was invented, and I started to see video streaming become something that was more realistic. You know, there was never enough bandwidth back then to stream video, but bandwidth had gotten larger. And I said, let's look into building our own transcoder and video streaming system where athletes can upload. It transcodes, it's created into a file that a coach can watch right there on their link, their profile, and they can email it out instead of mailing it, and get a response and find out if they looked at it and those kinds of things. And that's what Next Specs became, was a system for high school athletes who wanted to go play college sports to upload their highlights, put all their other information on there, upload their transcript in an encrypted format, so their academic transcript was on there, and then email it to coaches. And high schools were our clients, which made it free for the athletes at those high schools to use our software. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I can tell you stories about, girls volleyball player thinking she's not going to get to play college volleyball anywhere because nobody had responded to anything she had mailed out, and she used our system and got a full ride to the University of West Florida.
Wow.
It's like tons of those kinds of stories. And we built a good business, with recurring revenue at a time where being a founder and entrepreneur wasn't cool yet. Gary V wasn't Gary V yet, and at a time where technology was still not even close to where it is today. And not as many people had tech companies. So we were kind of early in that entrepreneur tech space. And it was a great experience.
So then what made you want to switch to, kind of your next thing, or one of your next things being physical gyms, building up a whole gym chain? Why go into it? Seems like a whole different business than this like easier,
Yeah.
maybe video software space.
Yeah. So, I was able to exit Next Specs, but it wasn't the typical exit story. I didn't make a ton of money off of it. I really could have and should have. There's a lot of things I look back at that I would have done differently in that first business. But those 5 years, while I would chalk it up as a failure, it really is what laid the groundwork for me as an entrepreneur, because I still was able to make a living those 5 years. I got a better degree than I ever would have got from a master's program by doing it, raising capital, building a team, creating a vision, executing the model. And the mistakes I made were great because I learned from them. We gave up recurring revenue from high schools about 3 years in to do a freemium model where we made money off of ad revenue and premium memberships and subscriptions. And that was a bad decision, and I learned from it. And so we had another company take over our software, do an asset purchase, and somebody from our team went with that deal onto the team of that company. And I was in a place where I was looking to build something new, and I was in a position that I had a little bit of time to figure out what that would be. And that's where I met Forrest Walden, who had just started a gym in Birmingham called Iron Tribe Fitness. And Forrest was the best entrepreneur I had ever met. And it was not just because he was great at business, but he was an amazing husband, an amazing father, a philanthropist, a Christian who figured out how to live out his calling as a Christian man through his business. And I was just a member at his gym who had exited a company that I had built for the last 5 years. And I went up to him. I was like, "This gym is awesome. Have you ever thought about like having more of them?" And he said, "Well, yeah, I'd like to franchise it one day." And I said, what if I helped you start doing that now? What if I opened the second one? And that led to a conversation where we ended up becoming partners. And I opened the second Iron Tribe here in Birmingham. We did three more or two more, got to four locations. And then in 2012, we co founded the franchise model to allow others in markets like Nashville, Miami, Atlanta, Houston, New Orleans, all over the Southeast really to buy an Iron Tribe territory and open up a gym in their market. And we grew fast. We were, got to about 50 gyms during my 6 years there. Um, Forrest bought me out in 2016, and I'll tell you why and how that story worked me into my third venture. But I think at Iron Tribe, what I learned about is how to build a culture, not just with your team, but with your clientele. Because really, we were a gym, and Iron Tribe still is a great gym, but it's more of a community than a gym. It's a beautiful building. The workouts are really great, high intensity workouts. The coaches are all full time and they're really personal training you in a group and fitness environment. But you can still get a lot of those things in other places. What made Iron Tribe special and what still makes it special to this day is the people that it attracts as clients and thus the community of people that it creates. It becomes the third place for people. It's home office Iron Tribe. And that was what I was most proud of is the culture we built. And it was a big reason that we grew from, one gym to 47 gyms exactly was the number when I got bought out by Forrest. And it was just a really great journey.
So, I mean, you were kind of out of the college world, it seemed like at that point, even though you were there before. What made you interested in just getting back into that whole scene?
Yeah. So during my time at Iron Tribe, I was still following college athletics closely, and through a conference commissioner who I got to know that was a member of one of our Iron Tribe gyms, I learned about the Ed O'Bannon case, and when Ed O'Bannon beat the NCAA over the improper use of his name, image, and likeness, I learned about what that could mean for college athletics. And so for me, uh, my thesis was name, image, and likeness is not a matter of if, but when. It's going to happen. Um, you know, you can look at the market in whatever you're doing, and you can ask yourself, is this what it's always was what I'm trying to do more in line with how it's always been, or is what I'm trying to do more in line with where it will end up? And at Iron Tribe, back in 2010 when it got started, like group fitness was definitely the new trend. People wanted to work out in groups. CrossFit was big, other types of group workouts, Zumba, Orange Theory were big. And we felt like there was a way to do it with a personal training feel in a group fitness environment. And that was what we bet on was coming next. With Influencer, the company I ended up deciding to start after Iron Tribe, it was, hey, name, image, and likeness is going to happen. It's going to disrupt college athletics. And there's a business to build right now by producing good software for college athletic programs to provide to their athletes to help them on social media and building a brand. Because that was already something in my conversations with folks around college athletics that they were looking for. They were looking for tools to help their athletes on social. So we built software to answer that bell. And all the schools bought it in the first couple of years. From 2017 to 2019, we really had a critical mass of big time Division I college clients using our software. And by then, everybody knew NIL was going to happen because a law had been passed in the state of California saying that it would happen. And so other states followed California, and then the NCAA said we're going to do it as a global organization. Um, and so at that point, Teamworks, another software company in the college and pro sports space, software for teams, helping them communicate with their athletes, schedule their athletes for things, all that. Teamworks came to us and was like, listen, we want to buy Influencer and we want you to stay on as CEO and we want to help you build for NIL because it's clear it's coming. And so I did that deal and I stayed on as CEO and we built for NIL. And when NIL began in 2021, we launched software for the schools to add to their influencer deal that allowed them to really track all the payments happening between brands, collectives, and anyone else and their athletes. Everything with NIL in one system of record through the influencer platform. And so we went from just being a social media software tool to being a social media and NIL management system for the athlete. And it was a really crazy time, NIL starting and all that happened, but it was a lot of fun being one of the main companies that athletes and schools used for, the documenting of all their NIL activities, and influencers still that today with Teamworks.
What was it like the moment when NIL was really possible? Like, how did you handle that? Because I'm sure it was quite a unique time. For years and years, people wanted this, then it became possible, and it was like, oh my gosh, like this is a whole new world.
Yeah, I mean, when it first happened, nobody really knew what to expect. Everyone was trying to figure out, how can I get as much NIL opportunities in front of our athletes as possible so we can use, make money with NIL at our school in our recruiting pitch. Um, what ended up happening is 4 or 5 months in, donors from each school started laundering money into shell companies called collectives to be able to pay players NIL to go to a school. And NIL turned fast into pay for play. Now, there's a bunch of real NIL endorsement deals out there, but that makes up 10 to 15% of the total NIL market. The other 85 to 90% is donors who are passionate about their school giving money into a shell company that pays those athletes to come there so the school can win. And there are many who say that's always happened. It just didn't happen through NIL. It happened under the table. I have a podcast called Now It's Legal, which is what I think NIL really stands for, because this has always been going on, pay for play under the table. Now it's just legal and you can do it out in the open through NIL. But the reality is when that started happening, instead of people trying to figure out how do you regulate it, everybody just started doing it, and there's no rules. And the reason there's no rules is because the NCAA has lost multiple court cases this century that have deemed it an organization with antitrust violations that don't allow it to set rules without being sued. So every rule the NCAA sets, it seems like there's a new lawsuit. And it's because of the antitrust issues that the NCAA, the conferences, and the schools have. So, it's a really crazy situation right now with everything going on with NIL. And there's a lot of other issues that have come out of it. But I'm happy that college athletes are finally getting paid something for the immense amount of value they bring to college sports.
I think that's a good way to look at it, that they are getting compensated somehow, and it's nice they can be. Um, so isn't there's a large settlement that like you're working on? I think that you're involved in. It's $2 billion college athletes NCAA settlement. Can you just talk a bit about just what that is in general?
Yeah. So after being with Teamworks, they acquired Influencer in 2019. 2023, I stepped down as CEO. So I stayed on for 4 years with Teamworks. It was a great experience. Teamworks still operates Influencer to this day. And that's an important point I want to make is like, each company I built, it meant something for me to know it would continue to run without me after I had an exit. I didn't want to build something that couldn't continue without me. And I've gotten a little bit better at that with each company, and I still have a long way to go. But it's helped me realize that I need to learn how to build a great team, build a great product, basically build things that scale. So that's not all about me and my ability, but it's actually less about me and my ability than anything or anyone else. But I stepped down in 2023, and uh, my thought was this: we're here in this chaotic situation of NIL because there are no rules. There's no rules because the NCAA continues to lose in court. There's, at this point, 2023, several new court cases that are saying that the schools should pay the athletes directly for the services they provide on the field or court. And it shouldn't just be coming from NIL, from donors laundering money through a collective. And my thought was the only real sustainable future for college athletics is one where there's a partnership between the athletes and the schools, where they agree on all the rules: compensation, transfers, health and safety, all of it. And if that happens, like it does in the pros, right? There's a collective bargaining agreement between the NFL Players Association and the NFL that governs all the rules in those categories like transfers, compensation, health and safety. When that happens in college, there'll be no more lawsuits, the schools will be protected, and the athletes will be protected and empowered because they'll be able to speak into things. And so I looked at these court cases as an opportunity to move with the market and build a players association for college athletes, build the NFLPA, but for college athletes, with hopes that once we organize the athletes and the market continues to move through these court cases, eventually the schools and the conferences will actually want to partner with the athletes. And so we launched athletes.org at the end of 2023, been doing it for a little over a year. We have signed up more than 4,000. Actually, Ben, strike this, okay? I want to get my numbers right. Is that okay?
Sure.
Kind of
Yeah.
repeat it. We've signed up almost 4,000 athletes from mainly power conference schools and mainly in sports like men's and women's basketball and football, because those sports at those schools is what makes up almost 90% of the $14 billion a year that college sports does in revenue. College sports makes more in annual revenue than the NBA, the MLB, and the NHL. Only
Wow.
the NFL makes more than college sports. Yet, those leagues that it makes more than, the NHL, the NBA, the MLB, they share half of their revenue with their players every year through salaries. College sports doesn't. And that's the big discrepancy in American labor that you're seeing in these court cases. And it's a big issue for college sports. And so we set out to build the Players Association for college athletes so we can help build a bridge between the athletes and the schools and conferences to decide how all this looks in the future. And so built a great team. My partner, Brandon Copeland, played 10 years in the NFL, Wharton grad, perfect guy to lead our business. And the name of the business is athletes.org or AO. And, we are off and running a little over a year in. And these settlements, the settlement, I should say, is a consolidation of 3 different court cases. It's called the House settlement because that's one of the 3 cases that they're consolidating. And it's all about the schools having to start sharing revenue with athletes going back to 2016, back pay, $2.8 billion of back pay. And then moving forward, schools will start sharing revenue up to $20 million a year per school starting later this year, should the settlement get approved. So it's a pretty interesting situation, and it will change college sports in a big way because schools have never paid athletes directly. But these aren't employment agreements. They aren't salaries. They're NIL deals between the school and the athlete, which is going to create a flurry of a whole other set of problems, because these aren't pay for play contracts tied to the athlete playing their position. They're going to be written like they're tied for the athlete's name, image, and likeness, and that may limit the athlete and other name, image, and likeness opportunities that they want to go get on top of whatever their school's paying them. So there's a lot more problems to come, and the settlement's not perfect, but it is upon us. It will be heard. A final hearing will take place by Judge Wilkin on April 7th. And we'll find out thereafter if it gets approved, and that will be a big change for college athletics.
Just the last question I have, which you can give like a quick 1 minute answer. What are your future goals right now? Like big goals that you have that you want to achieve, whether they're short term, long term? What's this vision that you see for athletes.org?
First and foremost, for athletes.org to be recognized as the Players Association for college athletes. That's the biggest goal. That will allow athletes.org to continue signing up new athletes as they attend a new school, to become members. And that way we can represent them as a group to negotiate all the rules set around their experience as a college athlete. So that's the first and foremost goal. And then secondarily, once we have the athletes fully organized, the group licensing opportunities for us are huge. Group NIL deals for video games, trading cards, merchandise, products are how the pro players associations build a business. And we want to build the same business in college. And so just like the NFLPA helps bring the Madden deal together for the NFL players, and the NFL players get paid, and they put that deal together and make money off of it as well. Like, we want to build that same business in college. And so those are the two big things ahead of us with athletes.org. And we're closer today than we were 13, 14 months ago when we first really got going on this. So it's exciting.
That's awesome. Well, Jim, appreciate you taking the time and doing this. I'm excited to see how you're going to build up this, NFLPA for college athletes. I think it sounds super important to do, and I'm sure it's going to help them provide for themselves and just build up something really great. So I look forward to your success, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.